Okay, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. We are back with another very, at least in my opinion, very significant conversation with a very, who's become a pretty a good friend of ours, Dr. Peter Hoynuski, who has a PhD in philosophy. If I don't mean to put words in his mouth, he is a devout Catholic, if I'm not mistaken. And we are going to speak today on a handful of various subtopics relating to the Sister Lucy or Sister Lucia alleged replacement. And for those that are not familiar with Sister Lucia, she is one of the three individuals or children many years ago who had allegedly seen the Virgin Mary or the manifestation of the Mother Mary. And without further ado, Dr. Peter, sir, thank you so much for coming on and bringing all of the evidence and being willing to have this discussion with us. How are you today?
Great. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to present, the evidence that we found in this venue because it's important that this gets out to a wider audience, and that's what we were so happy to do with this interview.
Well, thank you so much. I just wanted to say before we really delve into it for the audience, for those either watching or listening on audio or video, that we also have a couple, we have another individual behind the scenes, very credible, I will say, with respects to being in a police force investigating sex trafficking, you name it. This individual has wished to remain anonymous, but has been, from my understanding, a very significant individual in pushing for the truth behind this pertaining to, again, Vatican Catholic Church cover-ups,
Right.
very sadly, the sex trafficking, all these things. But without further ado, I did want to say that so you have a PhD in philosophy, and
Yes.
I was wondering if you could give us a bit of a background history on what got you into this, what made you say, Doctor, holy crap, like this is not what it
Um,
seems to be.
sure. I had been giving many lectures for various Catholic groups, say from 2020, excuse me, 2000 on. And I worked closely with Father Nicholas Gruner, who has what was called a Fatima Center in Canada. He's since deceased, but so we were going around and speaking about Fatima, the apparitions at Fatima, and I became very close to him and worked with him. And but during all that time, we never spoke about, and it was never mentioned that there was a real problem with regard to the identity of Sister Lucy and a possible, imposture. And only after his death, I don't know why it didn't come up during his life, or he didn't. I think he just didn't want to open up this new area because so much was going on for him with regard to, conflicts with Rome and so on. But after his death, and after just reflecting on the various images that were coming in from various sources, for example, the Fatima Shrine in Portugal, and all that the internet allows you to do with regard to counterposing images, just looking at the various images from the various stages, supposed stages of Sister Lucy of Fatima's life, I saw clearly that there was a difficulty, it was a problem. There seemed to be an inconsistency in how she looked, how she presented herself, and her general attitude towards things as recorded in various conversations. And so I decided to, a friend of mine, Cornelia Ferreira, who was actually Canadian, she said, well, okay, there's a problem. There looks like there's a problem, but prove it. Prove that there's a problem, or prove that there's not a problem.
Right.
And so I started a tax exempt um, educational corporation here in Washington State, Sister Lucy Truth. And we've dedicated our funds and our efforts to getting scientific reports on various aspects of the pictures, the handwriting, the voice, whatever voice we have, what the videos of the later Sister Lucy, what we now know as the later Sister Lucy. And we've sent them to various experts of all different types, whether it's surgeons, dentists, super recognizers, forensic artists, all these different types of specialties that can analyze the photos or analyze the various writings from the different periods to see if there was a continuity of person, because that's what we're talking about, whether we're dealing with the same person, this famous individual, the only survive, the woman who was one of the three seers at Fatima. The other two, Jacinta and Francisco, died during the time of the Spanish flu as very young children in 1919 and 1920. She lived. She went into she was educated, Sister Lucia. She went to the convent. She was in the Dorothean Sisters in Spain, and then became a Carmelite in Portugal, Carmelite sister in Portugal. And so we're analyzing those pictures, that data, to see if there was continuity of individual, continuity of identity. And what we found, and what one report after another reported, was that there was not continuity of individual, that what you have are two individuals. One individual that we can identify all the way up until at least 1957. And then a new individual who comes onto the scene on May 13th, 1967, when they had the 50th celebration of the 50th anniversary of the apparition at Fatima in 1967.
Now, sorry, doctor, before you go on, I just want to clarify for the audience, Sister Lucy, or Lucia as they call her, or Lucia, was born in 1907, and she saw the manifestation with the other two children in 1917.
Yes,
in 1917. Yes. Okay.
Correct. Okay. Yes, there was various apparitions, normally on the 13th of every month from May to October. And of course, we're talking about a very important apparition, a very important event, because in July 1917, a miracle was predicted. Lucia asked for a miracle so that everyone could believe that Our Lady was appearing, the Blessed Virgin Mary was appearing, and that they were telling the truth about what was being said by the Virgin. And the Blessed Virgin Mary promised a miracle in October 13th, and of that year. And she
sorry, which year?
Okay, 1917.
Okay.
And so she repeated that promise in August of 1917, September of 1917, and then the miracle itself occurred at noon, at midday, on October 13th, 1917, this famous miracle, the sun, in which the sun, in front of 70,000 people, appeared to gyrate, change color. Everyone looked at the sun, and without any kind of squinting, without any kind of hesitation, the sun seemed to plunge to the earth, and as in this apocalyptic scene, and then return slowly to its heavenly seat, if you will. That converted many a non-believer who went there to just sort of mock the whole thing. Many Freemasonic newspapers and publications covered this story, and even one of them, because of the intervention of one of the journalists who was there, actually published 2 issues in which they had pictures from the story about the miracle of the sun. And it was also reported in the New York Times after it occurred in October 1917. So it was a worldwide event, and it was, Sister Lucy, the one who became Sister Lucy, Lucia, dos Santos of a nearby village in Portugal. She was the one, after the death of her two cousins, she was the one who sort of continued to, spread the message. She was sort of the embodiment of the message and the apparition at Fatima. And she entered the religious life, and she continued to speak to those who would visit her in the convent, whether it was in Spain in the 1930s and 40s, or the Carmel in Portugal in the late 1940s and throughout the 50s, throughout most of the 50s. So she continued to speak to them, and so she's a very important individual. And you probably have heard of something called the Third Secret of Fatima.
Right.
The Third Secret of Fatima, which was given to the children in July of 1917. And the first two secrets, which dealt with, a vision of hell and a vision of sort of the spread of atheistic communism and the beginning of World War II. That's right. The second secret. The third secret was not given. It was because of obedience. She wrote it down in the 1940s, but it was not revealed to the world. And my parents remember that in a lead up to 1960, the whole Catholic world was, because it was supposed to be revealed by 1960.
Right.
And in the lead up to this event, the revelation of the third secret, there was a lot of anticipation. Finally, we're going to find out what was so important that it couldn't be released until a much later date.
Sorry, doctor. If I may ask, before you go on,
I'm probably giving too much at once.
Oh, no. This is fantastic. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify for the audience. Who do you think, or do we have on paper, who officially said, like, no, this is not getting out. The third one is not getting out to the people.
Okay. Yes, we know. It was, so with all this anticipation, it was released in 1959 that everyone is expecting it any minute, the release of the third secret. Then in 1959, I think it was January or February, I can't quite remember, the Vatican, or a press release from the Vatican that was unsigned, said that the third secret would not be revealed probably ever, that that was it. A little more to it, but that basically it would not be revealed. So don't look for it. And we're putting it in this, in the file cabinet somewhere, down in, the basement, but it would not be revealed. So there was that incredible disappointment that sort of engulfed the Catholic world. And in 1959, 1960, and yet the whole, probably part of the main mission of Sister Lucia of Fatima was to bring forward the information in that third secret. And and then of course we believe, from what we've seen with the data and the scientific analysis, that there was a substitute that was brought in. And that substitute, when the Vatican said, "Oh, we're releasing the third secret finally in the year 2000," she was there when they spoke about it, and she just kept applauding when they spoke about a third secret that really was of not much interest. It was obviously a vision that had been had, but there was nothing strong, apocalyptic.
It was being downplayed per se.
The whole thing was being downplayed, and what was presented was an image, but very benign, sort of devotional, which everyone recognized from the beginning that this can't be the third secret of Fatima, because well, first of all, it was kept a secret all these years. Then they interpreted, and then there was also this interpretation that this vision described the assassination attempt against John Paul II in 1981, and which he survived
Right.
the assassination attempt. So
That's the one where, sorry, he was praying and the bullet hit him just
yeah,
past his
well,
rib
no, he
cage.
was actually going around the crowd
Oh, okay.
on May 13th, night, which is the day that the Blessed Virgin appeared to the children at Fatima for the first time in 1917. So it was on that anniversary day. He was going around St. Peter's Square, and he was shot by this member of the Grey Wolves from Turkey. And they said in their interpretation in 2000 that, well, the third secret really relates to that, and it's all about sort of John Paul II and that assassination attempt. So in other words, they had hijacked the third secret because clearly, I mean, why would it be said by Sister Lucy that the Blessed Virgin told her that this secret had to be revealed by 1960, when it according to Vatican, dealt with an assassination attempt 21 years in the future, which didn't even work, which didn't the John Paul
So
II
you're
died.
saying right. So you're essentially saying, like, why cover this up for so long? Why shroud so much secrecy around it if it was just a
Right.
simple,
Right.
unsuccessful assassination attempt?
What did the third secret say? Duck?
Right.
What was the message?
Right.
What was it supposed to convey? So
Got you.
it's
Yeah.
absurd. They hijacked the third secret, just like from what we found, they hijacked the persona, the identity of Sister Lucia dos Santos.
Right. Okay. So I wanted to bring up as well that even for those that are watching or listening that are not, devout Catholics or anything of the sort, I just wanted to bring up as well that I feel this is significant regardless of where your religious beliefs or ideological beliefs stem, because I think it speaks to a larger picture. Correct me, doctor, if I'm wrong, of just major suppression by institutions that are supposed to be, again, very positively oriented, very spiritual. And things like this.
Well, this is a Vatican secret of the highest order.
Okay, now before we delve into some of the data that you've brought with you, and thank you so much, by the way, for that. Let's just a quick recap for the audience. So, Sister Lucia, born 1907, 1917, along with two other children, she sees the Blessed Mother Mary. And then from there, she is given these three secrets or three predictions, if you will, of what's going to come. Now, does she write these three down? Do we have any record of what happened there, like over the years before she allegedly got replaced?
She wrote down the first two prior to the 1940s. She wrote them down, and they were actually released to the public. And the third secret, she said, she had a difficult, she couldn't write it down. She was so upset, or she was so moved, or she was so, I don't know, hesitant, that she didn't write it down. And she only wrote it down by order of her bishop, because she herself had fallen ill, and with the Spanish flu going around again. And she herself had fallen ill, and he ordered her to write it down. So under obedience, she wrote it down. And and that's the secret that was, its revelation was awaited for decades and decades by the Catholic world and the world itself, because it was always thought to have some kind of, if we want to use the word apocalyptic,
right,
in a certain way, we don't know the content, but it was thought to be of such great significance and importance, and even revealing some kind of threat to humanity, that it should be revealed by the time of her death, she said, or by 1960, that the Blessed Virgin Mary had demanded that it be revealed. And it's thought that if 1960 came and it wasn't revealed, that Sister Lucy would, go on the radio or find some way of releasing the information that had been entrusted to her. But of course, it never happened.
Right. Do we happen to know, do we have some type of, not that I would ask you for specifics off the top of your head at the moment, but do we have some type of paper trail of, say, for example, she writes down, on a piece of paper, what she's seen. It's then given to, say, a bishop, a cardinal, you name it. Is there any evidence of some of the, fake handwriting of her, fake letters being published?
Yes.
Anything?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
If your readers your listeners are interested in this, we have it in the sisterlucytruth.org. We have a whole section on handwriting, an analysis, professional analysis of her handwriting through the years. And we found a number, two or three letters that are clearly forgeries, and our handwriting expert Baggett showed that they were forgeries, and we were shocked. Really, we weren't shocked because we knew that there was a problem, but he came back and said that all the letters that he looked at from 1969 through the 80s, that they were forgeries, very clever forgeries. And on our website, sisterlucytruth.org, he lays out his report, and it's a sworn affidavit that he says he'll stand up with in court and testify to. So I mean, we try to get everything scientifically analyzed, but they showed that these letters were forged, that they were not in her handwriting. The original Lucy, who has many journals, many letters from the 20s.
Oh, 30s, so just to clarify, there was something to cross-reference those letters with.
Absolutely. And there was a whole journal that she was writing, other letters that she wrote in response to Vatican questions. So there is a whole line of different things, letters and journals that can be looked at through the years, and that's what he analyzed. And our expert has appeared on CBS News as expert and the mainstream media, and he's one of the greatest experts in handwriting in the United States. So and it's interesting also from just looking at the whole thing from the broader perspective that the forged letters from 1969.
Sorry, doctor, when you say letters, do you mean actual, like a full-on paper, or you mean letter, like, full-on paper?
Okay. Yes. That they speak of the complete obedience.
All right. Sorry about that, everyone. Quick little technical difficulty. Those watching or listening will not notice, obviously. You'll just notice that Dr. Peter was just abruptly cut off, not by me or Camden this time, but actually by just technology itself. But we were speaking on the subject of the handwriting and the note. You had said that
I remember,
an expert that been all over the mainstream media, willing to testify in front of any body of any kind, whether it's political or religious, you name it. Did you want to continue on that thought? And if not, I wanted to follow up some questions about that.
Right. Yes. And it's pretty interesting when you see the first letter that comes out as a forgery from 1969. It has to do with Sister Lucy basically saying that we need to show complete obedience to the basically the Pope and meaning Paul VI at the time, and that he's the good shepherd and he's the one leading us, when he was doing some many things that very much altered the church and the presentation of the church to the world. And it was very indicative of probably the reason why there was a change of Sister Lucy.
What year was this? Sorry, Doctor?
This letter was from 1969. We believe that the change over from the real Sister Lucy to the imposter occurred about 10 years before.
So around 59-ish.
Like 59-ish, yes. So, that the imposter would come out with this idea.
Which my point actually though is that's key and makes sense, because the third secret was supposed to go public 1960, you would say,
correct,
right? And so replace her a year sooner. When it
yes,
is 1960, she can't go on those radio shows. She can't,
can't go on those radio shows.
Yeah, right. So it would make sense that that is the year.
Sure. And there is some testimony, and it's not documented, but there is testimony that she wanted to get on the air in 1959 and present to the world something. She didn't. There was never any indication of exactly what, but we can just imagine what she wanted to present to the world. Instead, what happens is that in the summer, in July of 1959, there's a statement made by her diocese saying that Sister Lucy has no more to say about Fatima. No more to say. So just when we're expecting something to be said, there's no more to be said. So now, they really indicated that she was going to be shut down. It's interesting, however, that the woman who we've identified as the imposter, Sister Lucy, published one book after another about Fatima in the years following, like in the 70s and the 80s.
Almost as if to convince, almost as if to convince the masses
that she was
the real deal, and also to totally change the whole message of Fatima and to spin it the way the contemporary Vatican
because we've spoken, and it seems right in those years the Vatican itself kind of switched narratives, kind of things, right?
Yes, it switched from what everyone would probably recognize as the Catholic faith and the Catholic apologetic to the world, and to basically a focus on man, on a new world that was being built according, to them. And basically, I would say, to make it simple, the New World Order, that the Catholic Church would be a functionary and a loyal servant of the New World Order. And of course, Sister Lucy, the original, would never go.
Never would have hung around with that. Absolutely right.
If I could,
if you read her writings, she's what anyone in the world would identify as a typically devout Catholic soul, and she would never go along with, worship of pagan gods, say on St. Peter's Basilica.
I did want to mention as well for our audience that is that's either watching visually or listening with audio, that keep in mind, folks, the relative to our content, like Camden and my content, the timing pertaining to the 50s of, again, the overall aspect of the Vatican playing into that whole concept of an overarching agenda. Again, not to sort of just, speculate and throw things into Dr. Peter's presentation, but just keep that in mind, folks. You'll see many of you will see what we mean by that.
Timing of things we talk about.
Exactly.
Treaty. Yeah.
That's why the scientific aspect of this investigation is so important, because here's scientific evidence that there was a change of this one woman who could have probably brought down the Vatican's entire agenda. No, not could have,
probably
She could have.
had
She
the ability to.
would have.
Yes.
Not just could have, would
She
have brought
would
down
have.
the Vatican's whole agenda. And so therefore she had to disappear. And guess what? According to the best and the brightest who could analyze these things, she disappeared.
She
And
disappeared.
someone else who doesn't, I mean, I don't think she looks like her at all. And if you present some, she doesn't look like her at all. She doesn't think like her at all, and she doesn't even write like her. So this is a huge thing because it's a science. You know, many see that there's a problem. Many see that there's a difference. But here's scientific evidence that there is a concrete difference between what was before and what came after.
Right. Now, I did want to ask before we delve into the data and the evidence, if we were to take another angle of this, say an investigative angle like you've been doing for so long and so well, in my opinion, let's just say, for example, the note, right? Let's just say it was a piece of paper. Are we able, are we just so, could we by chance track like the note was given to say this bishop or this priest and then so on and so forth? Was there ever a point where it was like, oh, the note was locked away or we don't know where it went?
The third secret you're talking about?
Correct.
If you're talking about the third secret, yes, we can. We know it was written down in 1943. And then it was passed on, it was given over to her bishop.
Okay.
And it was not conveyed, and it was not conveyed to the Holy See. It was not conveyed to Rome until the 1950s. And then it was conveyed to Rome, and if it was given to Pope Pius XII. And according to some, he read it in 1957 and was going to release it, but died before he did. But otherwise, you know, they testified that they put it away. It was put away in a desk in the Vatican, and you know, in the papal apartments. And someone actually looked at it when they actually wrote it down. When she wrote it down and they put it in an envelope, someone actually looked at it against the light and could sort of peer into the envelope and saw that it was a message made up of about 21 lines of writing. Okay. And those lines of writing, you know, is sort of a succinct message. What was released by the Vatican as the third secret was a lengthy text and not 21 lines of writing at all that could fit in a small envelope. It wasn't even supposed to be, you know, in an envelope at all. It was part of her, you know, great extended writings. And so, you know, that's a big difference. The original we knew was 21 lines. Kept.
Sorry, doctor, do you think? Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
Sure.
When Sister Lucy gave the letter to her bishop, do you think between that period of, you know, the bishop having it and the years that Pope Pius was supposed to allegedly release it, do you think there was internal bickering within the Vatican? Like, okay, geez, like what the hell do we do with this letter? Like, how do we, like, should we bring it out? Or do you think it was flat out like maybe even the bishop didn't bring it to the Holy See?
Well, no. I don't think there was no bickering as to you know, when it should be brought or if it should be released. There was a question of whether Pope Pius XII actually read it, you know, during his lifetime. He died in October 1958. But there was because there was always this 1960 attached to it. There was always this date, 1960, that it should be revealed by that date. And in fact, the emphasis was basically in 1960, we're going to find out what the third secret was. Well, by the time 1960s comes around, They've already said they're not going to release it. They're going to put it away, and we're never going to find out what it really is, perhaps. And, Sister Lucy has no more to say about Fatima. Basically, don't worry about it. And that's where it stood until this strange third secret was revealed in 2000. That's very, it's clearly a vision. Maybe it relates, or it was accompanied the actual third secret, but clearly the content of that secret in no way expresses the magnitude, the importance of the third secret as the Vatican knew it, as Sister Lucy knew it, as the whole Catholic world knew it.
Right. Now, speaking of which, the books in which were written allegedly by, Sister Lucia, but we would presume, the replacement for many, many years after.
Yes.
How, again, I know everyone is of their own opinion. I don't expect you to speak on behalf of the rest of, Catholics, but how was that received at the time? Was that even questioned, or was that like, oh no, Sister Lucy just wrote a bunch of books?
It was received as Sister Lucy wrote a bunch of books because hardly anyone knows about the deception. Hardly anyone knows about the replacement.
Right.
Hardly it's not known. It's only known, you know about it now, and in certain limited Catholic circles, and we put it on the internet, and if you look up Sister Lucy of Fatima, most of the sites that you pull up are from our investigation. But in the general Catholic world, this is not known, this fact that there was a replacement put in around 1959, as far as we know. Certainly by 1967, there was a replacement put in. Most of the Catholic world doesn't know about it. Most of the world doesn't know about it. It would be on, Drudge Report and CNN, and if it actually burst forward, it should be, because it's from my perspective, from the perspective of a believing Catholic or Christian or anyone who appreciates historical truth, it should be on the front page everywhere.
Yes.
Just like the various scandals from coming from the clergy, mostly in the 80s and 70s, and just like those were all over. This should be, and if we can get it out, it will be, worldwide news, of worldwide import.
Absolutely. Speaking of which, if it's all right with you, Doctor, let's for the audience and all that, let's take a look at some of these the comparison photos.
Okay,
if that's all right, and then we'll get into the specific, like the State Department document and all that. Camden, whichever one side by side. I know there's a few of them. Whichever ones you want to put up first.
This one right here on the screen right now, inline image, that is that is supposed to be our old Sister Lucy, new Sister Lucy?
Yes, that's the old Sister Lucy, and what I would say is the real Sister Lucy. Okay, you switched.
Oh, I know.
Okay. That's the old Sister Lucy. That picture was taken in 1946 when she was in the. Okay, so 1946, she's 39 years old. And she's in Fatima. She visits Fatima. Did I say 1946? Yeah, 1946.
Yes.
She visits Fatima again. She's in the Dorothean order. Okay, that's an order of nuns that was based in Spain. And she returns. She sees her family again. And if you look at her, she's unique individual. She has this touch of the Portuguese peasant, appearance, and she's seeming like a humble aura about her, and very unique facial characteristics.
Well, so I want to I'm just gonna do a DuckDuckGo of Sister Lucy, and I'm curious actually, like how many of these photos are
find
the
that
new one, how many are the old one? You know what I mean?
Right, sure.
So this is just images.
Okay.
Right there,
if you get one of those Right. You just hit it right there. You can. Okay.
This is okay. So this is
Are
the
those the
change
same person?
right? Are those the same person?
One is from 1946 about, and the other is from about 1992. So
And what was the explanation?
The left one is 1946. The right one is 1942. Is that the same individual?
It doesn't. I mean, the chin changes drastically.
Yeah. Sorry, 1946 and 1952.
First one, no. 1946, the original, and then 1992, approximately.
The one on the right.
That one, yeah, 1992.
Right. So now I understand.
That's 40 years difference.
Yeah.
Right.
Like they're 40 years. The right is 40 years older than the left.
Now, this is the thing. I was going to say, I understand that I'm not an expert in the way that, people, when they age, the skin loosens and things like this, but the elasticity of the skin, the collagen and all that. But what has anyone even questioned this, doctor? Or
there have been a few. There have been a few.
I mean, certainly,
I can name a few, but a few whose voices have not been generally heard. And one has, spent his life, I know, looking into various aspects of it. Some others came out with the information or, sort of superimposed the images and spoke about it, but there was never any scientific investigation into it before Sister Lucy Truth, started.
Right.
So,
and what, sorry, if anyone had,
there should be more. All of our experts, so many of our experts have come to us and said, after analyzing everything and seeing the difference, and they know exactly what the difference is and why there's a difference because of their specialty, they say, well, why hasn't this been discussed before? And we say, we don't know.
Is there any official, I think before we started recording, we had mentioned what's it called? The people say, oh, she got dentures or something like this. Is this?
I mean, because teeth, the whole tooth line, you see here gums, all of that changes.
Right, all of it changes. The actual Sister Lucy did have her teeth replaced in the 1940s, and because her teeth were terrible, and she did get dentures, but the experts take this all into account. They know all this.
Right, yeah.
They know it. They say over and over again that not only would this not change the basic facial structure, but what happens to the face as it gets older, the opposite should happen if the woman had dentures.
Well, I mean, the thought would also be this photo on the left.
Yes.
That person has dentures, it sounds like, in your timeline. She's already had her teeth replaced here.
Not yet. Within, I'm trying to think, within a couple of years.
Because I thought you had said, okay, yeah, absolutely.
Yes. But you see the difference in the chin. There's other photos in which the chin, and the experts always say, well, look at, the chin, and they look at it from their own scientific perspective, but the chin is so important. But also, the nose, the relationship between the eyebrows, the cheekbones, the whole structure of the face.
So much of the face actually just visibly changes.
Just intuitively, if you looked at those two women, would you say that we're looking at the same woman?
It's not like she went and got plastic surgery to do herself up. Most
people don't join a Carmelite convent to get plastic surgery.
Right.
Camden, could you pull up another comparison image while we keep talking, just for the audience to get a change in
You see how many of our photos are on the internet?
I know, I really did like that.
Yeah.
See, this is from our Lois Gibson. Can you pull that? Okay. One's a forensic artist. One's a forensic artist report. I think it was a little bit up. It was like a drawing of Sister right there. You just came up to it. It's the third line down. It's like at the far left. the far left, there's a
This
picture of an older woman, not her, the next one over.
Okay.
Yeah, her, yes. Okay, this is what Lois Gibson, okay, we asked Lois Gibson, who has the world's record, she's in the Guinness Book of World's Records, for identifying the most criminals with her forensic art. Okay.
Really?
She's also done dentistry. She's also been trained in dentistry and facial reconstruction and, you know, reconstructing faces from bones and all this. And this is her portrayal of what Sister Lucy should have been like at the age of 60. This, based on what she looked like in those pictures from the 1940s and the 1950s, this is what she should have looked like in her later age, okay? When she was, you know, 60s and 70s. And so
that is nowhere close to what that other, yeah.
And but you see in this, there's this sense of sort of Portuguese peasant, sort of.
This looks like the photo that we were looking at before. This looks like the left one, absolutely.
A face with character, right? Yeah. A face with this unique character and with this sort of inner joy and unique, you know, spiritual identity. And then, okay, at the top there, yes, the top, no, okay. And this is what she looked, okay, yeah. No, well, yeah, that's an older picture, but those pictures, oh no, the black and white, just one over, that's what she actually looked like. No, excuse me, that's what the woman who came forward in 1967, that's what she actually looked like. Remember the other forensic?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what she should have looked like. This is what
the
new one, the imposter, actually looked like in 1967. You tell me that they're close?
Could you sorry, Camden, could you pull up the in the PDF, the Our Lady of Fatima nun comparison to individual A and B, that particular one?
That's Lois Gibson's, yeah.
Not this one. We'll get to that in a second.
Okay,
that one.
Right here,
that one. Okay. That's important too. This is Lois Gibson, from Lois Gibson's report, and you can see the detailed analysis that just astounds me when I go through it myself. I can't believe how detailed her analysis was and the differences. Let me just tell you, this Guinness Book of World Record specialist in exactly this topic, she said to us in an email that it is impossible that these two women be the same person. Impossible.
She told you directly.
She told me directly, and we have it in an email. We cite it on our website.
I mean, it looks blatantly not the same person, right? It just doesn't.
It's impossible that they be the same person.
Yeah.
And, you know, she has no horse in the race of any type. So she was like, well, I could write you 8 reports about this. I've written you 3. You know, it's better sometimes it's better not to say too much because it's so obvious.
Right.
And it's so clear in the reports that I've written that these are not the same individual.
I mean, if you want, absolutely walk through all 5 of these points. We can. I mean,
very quickly, the nasal bone of picture A is narrower than B. This causes the eyebrow hair growth. Excuse me 1 second. This causes the eyebrow hair growth to occur closer together in the horizontal center of the superciliary or superciliary. Yeah. Arc of individual A compared to the wider apart eyebrows of B. Point number 2 is that the eyes are closer together due to number one.
Yeah.
Point number 3 is that the bottom third of the nose is narrower in individual A compared to individual B. The nostril holes of individual A are rounder, more visible, when viewed frontally, and those holes are closer together on individual A than on B. The nasal holes of individual A are a different shape than the nasal holes of individual B. The 4th point, second last point, is that individual A's philtrum, the distance from the bottom of the nose to the top edge of the top lip, is longer than individual B's philtrum.
Yep.
And point number 5 is that the lips of individual A are narrower on the horizontal plane than individual B. The top lip of individual A is wider on the vertical plane than individual B's top lip. And the bottom lip of A is thicker on the vertical plane and protrudes further forward beyond the horizontal indentation, below the lips compared to individual B.
Yeah.
Is that's accurate, doctor?
That is point by point down the entire face, and she didn't even mention the chin, because that
no,
chin's
that's
the
on
worst.
another page.
Right.
Yeah, that's on another page.
Can we jump to the chin if that's the chin picture, Camden?
Yeah, look at that. Look at the difference.
I mean, she goes from nothing to like a crimson chin poking out there.
You said it.
Yeah. This is, I mean,
and we've had maxillofacial surgeons and facial reconstruction experts.
Yeah, you can't.
That this is not possible. I don't care if you got dentures or not. This is not
right. Your jaw does not move that much forward, become that much more defined.
As you get older, it moves in the opposite direction.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I wanted to ask, Doctor, before we go on to the next photos to analyze the rest, and then we'll top it off with the obviously the State Department document. But have you or your colleagues received any corporate institutional pushback? Like, have you guys tried to go to, you said you had an expert on that he or she has appeared on CBS, you name it.
Yes,
and
yes.
Have you guys tried as the Sister Lucy Truth organization tried, and have you guys been knocked down or not acknowledged, anything like this?
Well, it's not. Sometimes among some sort of apologists for the Vatican, laymen, they don't never do with clergy. Laymen have gone after us as, oh, this is absurd. This is, flying saucers on, and tinfoil hats. And this is nuts. That's their approach to us completely. One that just came out said, well, you didn't know that that if you have dentures, it changes your whole appearance, and that Sister Lucy had dentures, therefore you're full of crap, basically.
Would you consider bringing this?
We said to them, we know that it's included in the scientists' reports, and it says that if she got dentures, it would work in the opposite direction. It more perfectly proves that this is not the same woman. We know this, but they, anything you come forward with that the establishment of any type doesn't want to acknowledge, they, rather than deal with the issues, rather than do what we're doing now, looking at the actual evidence, all they're doing is saying, you're nuts, this is crazy, there's not, let's move on. They just made something up. They saw, oh, she got a fly on her chin or something, and therefore they don't, that's why it's different. And
now, just curious, I mean, I would imagine that you would probably not even consider bringing this to, say, your local archdiocese or you name it, because they would just not even consider it, just dismiss it. But just for the sake of putting this on the record, have you, if I may ask, have you gone to anyone, and if so, who?
We have
not just the church, but
we have not gone to any other than on the internet, other than on interviews, podcasts, and we have not gone and presented this because
there's no point. They're going to say,
they'll
shut down immediately.
And also this is an ongoing thing. So we have reports in the works that have still not gone up, and we're either waiting for this or that. But and we also have other tests that we've planned that we haven't sent the information to or contacted the experts.
But there have been individuals or bodies of people that have tried to ridicule your work.
Correct. Yes. Okay. On the internet, you can see them. We even put them up sometimes ourselves on the Sister Lucy Truth YouTube channel. We post them ourselves just because, well, okay, mock us, but look at the evidence that shows that you're wrong, or
It's
that
so, I
we,
mean, well, this photo right here, look at
yes,
the
which one
left
are we
compared to the
looking at?
right. I did want to ask,
Yeah.
Doctor, it says here, why did Cardinal Ratzinger pose for a photo with the imposter Lucy? May I
Sure.
ask the significance of Cardinal Ratzinger?
Okay, well, Joseph Ratzinger, who became, Benedict the 16th, who was always touted as a conservative, he actually was in one way or another in charge of the whole Sister Lucy case, or the Sister Lucy file, if you will, from the time he was appointed to the, basically we used to call the Holy Office,
Right.
of in with John Paul II in the early 80s, all the way until he was elected to the papacy in 2005. And then, after that till 2013, he was in charge of the Sister Lucy file. He actually came out in 2000 with an interpretation of the third secret that basically says the whole thing was about, the John Paul II assassination.
So he orchestrated this, generally, we could say. I
He
mean,
was
sorry, he
part of it.
orchestrated a part of the narrative.
He knew about the whole thing, at least bare minimum.
I have no doubt that he knows about the whole thing, because it's a state secret of the highest order.
Right.
This should come out that they got rid of Sister Lucy in one way or another in the late 50s, and were putting someone else in her place to act her part, to steal her persona. If that got out, well, it would be a crisis. Like
the whole belief structure. The whole belief structure would crumble. At least the belief structure.
The whole trust in them.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Would crumble, because if they could do this to someone who I believe was a seer of the Blessed Virgin Mary's apparitions, and she was the designated messenger of the whole Fatima secret and apparition. Well, then that's a huge thing. Did you bump her off?
Yeah, it changes the whole the whole
who,
game there,
who
because
who got rid of her? Where did she go? Was she killed?
Yeah.
Who is this woman that obviously took her place? Who is she? I challenge the Vatican. Who is she?
Yeah.
Anyone? I mean, we've got scientific analysis, but our scientist says, well, we do our scientific investigation, but really an 8-year-old could see that there's a difference.
Do the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, I was sorry, Camden, could you jump to either one of the hand pictures of the photo tampering? I believe there's 2 more pictures of the hands, 2 more sets of pictures, and then we'll go to the State Department document.
Okay. No, it's gotta go this way.
There we go.
No, just that one? Oh my goodness, these dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you see, it's hard to tell, because I'm not sure if you got sent all the pictures, but you see the one with Paul VI down at on the bottom. That was at Fatima, and then supposedly Sister Lucy next to him. Well, you're focusing on the pictures. Just focus on that for a minute. Well, this is supposed to be from May 13th, 1967.
That is a Photoshop. I can
tell.
That's
okay. Yeah. You said it? 100%. Yeah. No, who said that first? Our jaw surgeon who analyzed the picture said, well, that's not. With the lighting.
If I could say, Doctor, now,
there, yes.
Maybe that was very good work at the time with, very little to no computers, but this is I could tell you now, this is something that, my younger brother could do a better job on in a couple hours,
But listen, this came out in a newspaper about in Fatima, from Fatima in the next month, June 1967. They were putting out these images. And we actually have the source image somewhere. I'm not sure if we sent it to you, but actually, obviously she wasn't there. She wasn't standing near Paul VI. And that camera is clearly the only thing next to him. You see the camera in the background behind her head. That's the only thing there. She was put in But in order to put these pictures together, I guess they had to alter the fingers, and look how
that's
odd.
just sloppy. They just thought that's good
No
enough.
one's gonna know it. They didn't
Right.
know that the internet was coming.
Yeah, at
Right.
all.
Camden, I just sent you on Zoom chat a document called
Yeah.
handprints comparison.
Yeah, I got you.
If you could pull that up, and then we'll after the kind doctor explains to us what we're looking at there, we'll look at the State Department. Here we go.
Yeah, this is actually sort of in process. One of my guys who does a lot for us has said, well, you can look at handprints and there's a science of it.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a science
it's a lot
in
like
itself.
a fingerprint. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a fingerprint. So this is sort of in process. We're getting the pictures together to submit to an expert, but there's clear differences here, and I think it's worth pursuing because the handprints are different, and that's something in process, along with various other aspects of the photograph.
Well, you know what's great, doctor, about these things
Yes.
being in process but still
Yes.
putting it out to the public is
Yes.
that there may be someone that will pause this video and say, hey, we see something, that
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And they could say, well, you should really look into this. There's experts on this. You should submit this information to them, which is what we do. And we've come up recently where we submitted it to the various pictures to facial recognition experts that work with the FBI. And they said this was the latest one. We had this whole line of reports saying, well, it's definitely not her. It can't be her, the same person. This one says, well, we don't know. It could be one way. I said, okay, well, that's what you say,
Sounds like the FBI to me.
But okay, you said that. We're going to publish it. We're getting it ready for publication on our website soon. But okay, we've said from the beginning, we're approaching this from a scientific point of view. The theological implications or the philosophic or the social implications, everyone can see it in their own way and draw from it what they want. But the facts are the facts. And this is what we're presenting, and this is what we're analyzing.
Right. And just for the record, do you for those that are maybe watching or listening once this gets out there that are skeptical, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I'll ask, do you encourage them to try and debunk in a reasonable way and in a logical way your work? Because
absolutely, but they don't need any encouragement from me.
Okay, fair enough.
They don't need any encouragement from me, but they pick up the slightest thing they can. For example, one person said, well, in one facial recognition report, it says that the 1940s Sister Lucy is the same as the 1967 Sister Lucy, but it's obviously there's a totally different woman in 1982. I mean, that's a totally different woman from the old Sister Lucy. The one that appears all the way to 2005, that's definitely not her. But this comes up in the report, something in their analysis or their programs came out with this. Okay, fine. First of all, it says that there was a switch somewhere along the line. Secondly, it proves that we're treating it in an objective way. The reason I seem almost, I don't know, like it's like a, making it apologetic or some kind of like appeal about this whole thing is because so much evidence has piled up that it's time to put this evidence and the conclusions from this evidence in the face of the world, in the face of churchmen, and in the face of the Vatican. Because anyone who knows the Catholic Church, anyone who knows the way things go, if something happened to Sister Lucia Fatima, the ultimate order would have to come from the Vatican. I don't know anyone who says anything different. I mean, that's ultimately who did it. Of course, no doubt, probably it came from the top.
Right.
It would have to come from the top. Someone of that significance is not gotten rid of or bumped off without the top signing off on it. I don't see any other analysis of the situation.
Speaking of signing off
Yeah.
on things, what if you could explain to us, Doctor, what are we
Okay.
looking at here with this State Department document from
Okay.
October 11th, 1958?
Okay. This is, well, first of all, let me explain why we're even interested in anything like this, because we're actually pursuing this with the FBI, CIA, State Department, and Justice Department right now. All right.
Oh, so
we're okay. We're in the process of investigating it and requesting documents from them right now. And if we don't find what we need and we think they have it, we're going to sue the government to get those documents declassified,
Right.
or we're going to do that.
Mm.
So let me just say this. We believe from our evidence and from what we've seen with the pictures, the handwriting, that the real Sister Lucy disappeared around 1959. Okay. Now, so there was a conclave, and that's in coming together of all the cardinals of the Catholic Church into a meeting. You know, they're locked away in the Sistine Chapel, and they meet there until they elect a pope. Okay, and elect.
Yep.
Okay, so
and just sorry for the audience, the smoke comes out of the
smoke comes out of the chimney, indicating whether there's a successful election or an unsuccessful election. So there was a conclave in 1958. On October 9th, 1958, Pope Pius XII, who led the church through, the World War II and, everything surrounding that war, and who was considered a traditional source of doctrine and practice.
Right.
He died in 1958 on October 9th. Well, we find out from this State Department telegram coming from the U.S. ambassador to Italy. Okay. From the U.S. ambassador to Italy. Can you go to the bottom? I just want to remember his name. I'm okay. Zellerbach. Yeah. Zellerbach. Yeah. Zellerbach. Ambassador Zellerbach. He wrote a telegram on October 11th, so 2 days after the death of the Pope, to the Secretary of State, John Foster Dulles. This was during the Eisenhower administration.
Oh my gosh.
He wrote a letter saying,
just beautiful lineup. I mean, yeah, Dulles.
And John Foster Dulles.
Yeah.
I actually met and interviewed his brother, Avery Dulles, who became a Catholic cardinal. It's a big sort of,
that's
elite,
an interview right
elite
there.
family.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who was involved in setting up the CIA and all these things. The ambassador to Italy wrote this secret telegram that was declassified, so we're not stealing anything, that said, that pointed to the fact that we have a source in the Vatican that's talking to us.
Right.
And if you could move down on, So this source in the Vatican is telling, just if you could just move it down a slight bit, that whole, or make it smaller. Yeah. So I can read the whole thing. Okay. I think I got it. So he's telling the Secretary of State that we have a source in the Vatican who's telling us this about the situation. What he's telling us, what's going to happen, what the lineup is, what the political dynamic is in Rome during this critical time. Okay. This is after the war, World War II. This is during the Cold War. This is when Italy is basically under U.S. domination, but there's a big Communist Party element in Italy that they're trying to suppress or keep out of the government. And this is, don't forget, in the days of Operation Gladio, which you've probably heard of.
Yes.
Within that context, he says this about the upcoming election. He said, if you can make it a tiny bit smaller, I can't quite read the screen. Tiny bit, I'm missing something. Okay. Speculating on Pius XII's successor, source says conclave could very well choose an old cardinal whose short pontificate may be devoted entirely to the reorganization of the Vatican Curia, the Vatican bureaucracy, the Roman Curia, which is the Vatican bureaucracy, left by deceased Pope in deplorable state. It's a direct quote from the source, that the Vatican bureaucracy was in a deplorable state after the death of Pius XII. Okay, whatever. But here's the critical part. A source indicated election of Cardinals Siri, Ruffini, Ottaviani would be misfortune for church, since these three cardinals have an, quote, unrealistic approach to great problems facing
my God.
Okay. Source said election of any one of three could depend on influence. In other words, blocking the election of any one of these three could depend on influence of American cardinals. Okay. And there was three at the time. And volunteered suggestion, the source, U.S. authorities could do well exercise discreetly the, quote, their own influence on certain American cardinals.
Oh my God.
In other words, pressure the three American cardinals to make sure these three men were not elected to the papacy. They named them Siri, Ruffini, and Ottaviani. Let me just tell you, these are the most traditional, most orthodox, from a Catholic perspective, the most orthodox and the most anti-communist of all the cardinals. Okay? And so why would the United States government see it as sort of a reason of state, an
interest of theirs,
interest of national security, interest of national security, to put pressure on the American cardinals to make sure one of these three men did not get elected.
Doctor, I don't mean to put words in your mouth,
I mean, they're not saying like some Soviet agent make sure they're not elected. Make sure these hardcore anti-communist, traditional
Catholics,
cardinals that are going to maintain the church in its doctrine as it was, make sure they're not elected.
Doctor, I wanted to ask, I was actually going to ask this either way, but this is a great transition to that. This might be
Can I make one more point here? Sorry.
Please, by all means.
Okay. There were three American cardinals. One was at the time going to Rome, that went to Rome for this conclave. One was from LA, McGuire. One was from New York, Spellman, and one was from Detroit, Mooney. There was only three at the time. And let me say this. Mooney, who was from Detroit, died in Rome 3 hours before the conclave began.
Oh my! What was did they know the cause of death? Like,
I don't know.
Oh my gosh!
CIA.
I don't know. Heart attack. I don't know.
Well, if I
really don't know. I
don't mean to. Sorry, I don't mean to.
CIA.
I don't mean. Well, I don't mean to.
I mean, what are the odds? We've been on long plane rides. That's a long plane ride from Detroit all the way to Rome. He survives all that fine, settles into Rome 3 hours before the 3 hours, not 3 days, not 3 weeks, not 3 months, 3 hours before the conclave, he dies.
Yeah, he was not going to vote how they wanted him to. That is obvious.
Okay, so I did want to say, not that I'm trying to
Right.
imply this directly, but
Sure.
if we look at the Church and Warren commissions of the 60s and the 70s, early mid 70s, we'll see. I mean, to be quite honest, not saying this was the case, but not saying this was the instance in this particular case, but the CIA did in fact have the ability to. They did have what was called a heart attack gun. It literally
Yeah.
made it look like you had a natural heart attack and no one would be
Sure.
able to know the difference, and that was back then, right?
Yeah,
So
that's
again,
just patents. We're not saying they did anything.
I
They
also-
just had
I'm not saying they
Right.
didn't know, but I mean, what are the mathematical odds
yes,
of that
yeah,
one of three cardinals from the U.S. who sort of receives this warning from the U.S. government? Don't elect these people. These
Oh
what are
God,
the
it's
odds
just
that one of
yeah.
them is going to die 3 hours before the conclave? I mean, if he died in the conclave, would be maybe considered scandalous, but 3 hours before, no problem. He just dropped dead.
well, this is what yeah, this is another
I don't
thing
know.
too.
I don't know. But
Well,
that's
I did want to mention very quickly before I go to my question to you, Doctor, for the audience, folks, keep in mind, again, 1950s, again, on our end, the Greada Treaty, things like this, the Dulles brothers,
The
the
flyover of
assembly,
Washington D.C. There was
right,
just so much in the 50s right there,
the
changing
the military industrial complex,
path.
Eisenhower
Yeah,
warning of that.
Operation Gladio.
yeah.
Yep, Gladio
That's
operate.
huge.
Yep,
It was. I mean,
absolutely.
it was so active in Italy.
I
I
mean,
did well.
and so
Yeah,
you're about to ask your question on for our own audience, but
actually, well, sorry, not exactly. I did.
okay.
If
Go
it's
ahead.
all right, just
Yeah, go
before
ahead.
I wanted to ask from this document. I was going to ask it either way, Doctor, but
Go ahead. Go ahead.
whether we're looking at this document or not, do you believe that this is indicative of a sort of rogue element within the Vatican? And I say this because last week when we spoke off privately, we had discussed about, again, the foundations of the church are a very nice thing. It's the people within them. So do you believe there is a sort of shadow government shadow group rogue element in the
Well,
Vatican?
there was a shadow. There was a shadow rogue group in the Vatican clearly in 1950s and during this conclave, but they're not in the shadows anymore. They're out in
Right,
broad daylight.
Right.
right.
And that's,
Gotcha.
I mean,
Okay.
that's
The other ones are gone. The other
Right.
ones were like, for example, Siri and Ruffini and Ottaviani. They were sidelined.
Do you think there needs to be I don't want to put this out to the people in the wrong way, but a cleansing of the system
well, that's
within
what
the
I was
Vatican?
about to ask.
No
Yeah.
doubt. No doubt.
Okay,
Try to
so
get
I
real
mean,
Catholics who believe in Catholic morality.
I
and
mean,
Catholic
but
doctrine
that's
into
builds
this.
perfectly into my question. I wanted to make sure I asked before the end here. What do you think should take place for that cleansing that is just very widely known to be needed in the Vatican? Are we talking Nuremberg style trials here of the leadership? Are we talking a breakaway sort of Martin Luther King style from the church, or what are we talking about?
Because it seems to be
think?
pretty rotten within.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's rotten within. There has to be a cleansing, and the first movement has to be the statement of truth. There has to be
Okay.
Catholics that come forward that attest to Catholic doctrine and say, you've changed Catholic doctrine in order to make the Catholic Church acceptable to this new world that they're creating.
Okay.
It's impossible.
Without
And
that first, absolutely.
Without that statement, then they have to be removed. Then these people who have lost their faith decades ago, they probably lost their faith in the 50s.
They lost their faith
they don't have
in
the faith.
spirituality. They have faith in their power. That's about it.
They have a faith in their power. They have, there's the huge sort of, homosexual element in the whole, scattered through the whole organization. There's the, hard left and, but of course, a huge thing is the Masonic infiltration.
Yeah.
There is excellent evidence, and your readers can no doubt identify it on the internet, that John the 23rd, the man who was elected in that conclave, how many days later after this? 17 days after this telegram
Right.
was issued, 17, so 2.5 weeks later, a man was elected, Angelo Roncalli, who many have testified was an active Freemason who was brought into Freemasonry when he was Vatican ambassador to Turkey, and then, brought in also to another lodge in Paris when he was Vatican ambassador after World War II to France. So there's this Masonic infiltration of the Vatican, and some nun who says, you got to convert, you got to do penance, you have to pray, and you have to, and there's going to be a great assault on your faith, and probably, what was in that third secret? Probably this.
That's what I was about to say. It really seems like this could have been
Okay, listen, those three little children at the age of 10 and 7 and 9 were threatened with boiling in oil by the Portuguese authorities in their area, and they really believed that they were going to be boiled in oil, and they refused to give up the secret. You know why? Because the Blessed Virgin Mary said, don't do it. Don't give it. Don't. This is not to be revealed now.
They stood by.
Even though little children were threatened with being boiled in oil. They didn't do it. They weren't. But
I don't think people. I don't think people realize how courageous you have to be at the age of 7, 10 to say.
One after the other. They took one after the other. Okay, Francisco's. He went back there. He's being boiled in oil. Okay, he's dead.
Oh my God!
Now the next one, the 9-year-old,
so they tried to play tricks on their minds.
You go in there, you'll be boiled in oil. Lucia was the last one, and she had to believe her 2 beloved cousins were boiled in oil, and she was next in a matter of moments. And of course, she doesn't know any different. These are local leaders. These are men of honor and integrity, or supposedly. And
exactly.
Then, and so she didn't give it up then, and it must have been of great import. She couldn't write it down even in the 1940s unless she was ordered to, because it was some little pious vision, some little pious picture. Of course not. The reason why the third secret had to be suppressed and the messenger of the third secret was because it pointed the finger
at the church,
people that were taking over at this time.
Yeah.
And it would have told everyone. That's why the Blessed Virgin Mary said that it should be revealed it had to be revealed by 1960. And then they asked Sister Lucy, why 1960? And you know what she said? Because it will be clearer at that point. It'll be clearer.
No, and that just seems so indicative of exactly the turning of tide in the church, exactly at that time, exactly at this time.
Yes.
It just seems to really, really point to exactly this.
And also relative to our research.
The influence, and this is something that is probably hard for a lot of traditional-minded Catholics to accept, because they've sort of grown up in I don't know, I call it an Americanist type of...
In a bubble?
Yeah, in a certain way, like this, from the 40s and 50s, there was this sort of worship of the American system.
Right.
And this points the finger at the U.S. government.
It does.
Its involvement with the church, its demand that, you can have the externals of your religion, but the core of it, the core of your message has to change.
Yeah.
And the U.S. government has been influencing the Vatican,
and not by the way, I do have a lot of respect for the American Constitution, but one of the amendments is the separation of church and state.
And it is just apparent and literally in words that they were exercising their influence over the church, and it's not like the church is supposed to stay separate. The government is supposed to stay separate.
1965. The church does a hunt. Quote, those who claimed the authority in the church did 180-degree turnaround and said, well, no, the teaching that, other religions can be tolerated, but the true religion, is the one that has the right to exist. That's totally changed. Now, all religions have a right to exist, and people have the right to accept whatever they want as the truth, and the state can't intervene in any way, whatsoever, well,
that's, I mean,
whatever you think about that, it's 180 degree.
It is a change of pitch in tone.
Completely.
Absolutely. And that was 1965. That's why they have to get rid of all the remnants of tradition. A huge one was Sister Lucy. That's what I'm reading into this, but it's there in clear sight.
Right. Yes. Right. Now, Doctor, before we wrap this up, and I wanted to ask my question that we spoke of earlier, is there anything that we missed or something that maybe you wanted to make more clear to our audience before we wrap it up?
Well, just in this regard, we are at this moment looking for more documents from this period of time coming, because again, we want facts. We want verifiable facts. Everyone talks and everyone has an opinion about the situation in the church. Well, let's find out what actually happened from this objective source that didn't know we'd be reading their telegrams in the like we're looking specifically at this ambassador, the US government at this point. What is it saying about what happened in that conclave in October 1958? Because there was various things that happened, changing of the color of the smoke on October 26th. I should mention this, October 26th, 1958, the day after the conclave started, white smoke is coming from the chimney, meaning there's been a pope that's elected. It comes out for 5 minutes, white. It goes out over Vatican radio. A pope has been elected. Everything's getting prepared for the new pope to come out,
correct,
onto the balcony and to see the people, tens of thousands of people in St. Peter's Square. And guess what? Nobody comes out. Then that night, the Vatican radio comes out. Well, it was a mistake. No pope was elected. Sorry. 2 days later, Angelo Roncalli, who comes out as John the 23rd, comes out on the balcony, ready to change everything. 2 days later, he also, as totally against precedent, when there's a pope elected and they're supposed to release the cardinals from the conclave. You go, you're all released. You've done your job. However, he kept them in another night to talk.
Oh my God! What are they?
What if we could be a fly on the wall? What were you talking about?
Oh, they were. Oh, the doctor, please pay no attention. They were playing Monopoly. There's no.
Yeah.
I mean, all jokes aside, though, I just wanted to say, first off, Camden and I are, and I'm sure our audience are extremely grateful for you coming on, sir, for you presenting this body of work in the way that you have and explaining it the way that you have. I don't think it could have been explained any more clearly, to be honest. And the final thing I just wanted to ask, as we had prepared, spoke about earlier, was for the record, for the audience, none of this was like, no questions were pre-orchestrated or anything like that. It was totally free flowing, except for this one question. So you had said last week you are not of the belief of extraterrestrials coming from outer space or anything like this. And I, not to debate, but genuinely would just like to know your take on why that is the case. Maybe you believe they're from another dimension, or maybe they don't exist at all in your belief, relative to what the news has been saying about there's these objects. We're not saying they're alien, but we don't know what they are. What do you think, Doctor, relative to your faith?
I appreciate the question of what are these objects? What are the various pictures and situations in which it seems like there's this unknown element, in the skies, whether it's ships or so on. There's several things. First of all, I think it's strange that there's not, again, just like with our investigation, I want to see the concrete evidence, like who show me
the documents, the data,
the documents, the where there's, or the pictures, or of aliens who have been come down to Earth and who have interacted somehow. And if they haven't, why haven't they interacted? That's a big point. But
sorry, if you're as a devout Catholic as much as you are, if one were to come, like we have the Pope recently saying, I think last year, that he would bless an alien if there was an existence of them. What do you
surprised me? Nothing surprised. Okay, well, this is significant, because you should know that the Vatican is actually more open to it than I am. They have these probes, and they're looking in with satellites and things, trying to see if there's any messages from outer space. And so, I mean,
would you be if someone were to come to you in the way that you have come to us with such evidence, would you be, relative to your devout faith as a Catholic, would you subscribe to this, or?
Yeah, well, I'd have to see what was presented.
Sure. Right. Yeah.
Just to see, maybe there's some aspect of creation that we don't know about. And there's a lot of paranormal things that appear in our world that, can be explained. For example, demonic manifestations, which are, it's 83% of Americans have experienced paranormal events in their house. There was a poll out just last month. I don't know if you saw that. But so that's a pretty, there's definitely the paranormal is present. Just finding out what it is, a lot of it's a demonic activity in my mind.
I believe, well, I can tell you personally, I personally believe in the exorcisms, exorcists. It was, like all of that. I certainly, there's been too much of that to say it's BS.
No, there's too much of it. And but the biggest point here, and I think this is for me, the biggest thing that I focus on, we believe in the incarnation. As Christians, we believe in the incarnation, that God, the second person of the Trinity, came down, became a man, took on human flesh in order to save men from sins, evil, the devil, and bring him to a better state of existence and in union with him, with God himself. So to me, the idea of aliens denigrates or lessens the importance that man has in creation, because the scriptures and the book of Genesis seem to indicate clearly that man is the center of creation, like the high point of creation. And I don't see how intelligent life coming from outer space would fit into that, because there's
a fair argument.
There's a lot of theological problems, like, did Christ's death on the cross redeem these people also, even though he became a man? And are they men? Are they?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I mean, we would have to say, I think that they're rational, but how do they fit into the whole scheme of things? And did Christ redeem them, or did they fall into sin? And so all these theological issues would be,
well, if I could say, Doctor, to add to your point, to play both sides of the argument here, there in the film Prometheus, total science fiction, directed by Ridley Scott, there's a point where shortly in the near future, humans go and they end up finding very, very far away from Earth. In this movie, they find life, and they find that the life they found, those beings actually created humans. And so one of the researchers has a cross on. And then also has, I think, a picture of the Blessed Mother Mary, and her husband says, "Oh, you can take those off now." She goes, "Why?" He goes, "Well, we found out who our creators are." And then she says, "Well, who made them?"
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, the creator God would have to create any kind of rational life is clear.
Right.
And so the question is, why weren't these mentioned? Why weren't these mentioned, say, for example, in the scriptures? Why weren't they mentioned in tradition? what are we to think of them with regard to the incarnation and the redemption? These are issues that we'd have to think about theologically.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're ever confronted with the fact that there are aliens, and
Right.
by our faith alone, we can't completely dismiss the idea that empirically there are aliens or from a different planet.
Well,
Because our faith doesn't directly address that, but I think
It never says no, but it also
never says
say
no,
directly that there are.
No, and in fact, one very traditional writer who wrote in the 40s, Father Fahey, I think he was an Irishman. I think it was in his writing. He said that if there were aliens, it would just further show the plenitude of God's creation, and fullness of that creation. And
that's a good point. That's a very
perhaps. I mean, who are we to say, God, you can do this and not do that? So,
well, I just want not that. Well, fair point.
Yeah.
Exactly. Not that I'm anyone of significance to pass judgment, but I just wanted to say, Doctor, that I really appreciate your perspective there, and I genuinely do, because
Sure.
I mean, there's a lot of people, and it's not just like what you have with Sister Lucy here. It's not about saying you're wrong, I'm right. It's about getting to the bottom of it.
Sure, getting to the bottom of it, and also, let what the government knows about all these situations, let them come clean on it. Why do they lie to us in any way?
They just have lied for so long, it would honestly almost even be hard to trust them coming forward with anything, because why is that beneficial for you to tell us now?
Yeah, I know.
It's just an entire...
I've gotten into this, but I'm interested in all these other so many other things. But let them reveal if they were in. Because another thing, and the historian of the United States has this on their website.
Right.
The historian of the State Department, I think, has this document which is typed out. It's from a testimony that Dwight Eisenhower in 1959, in a part of a peace effort, he was going around the Middle East and Europe seeking peace,
Right. Yeah.
And Eisenhower went and met with John the 23rd in the Vatican on December, I can't remember, I think it was late December 1959, and they were in perfect agreement and praising each other and saying, well, I hope, basically Eisenhower was saying, we hope you support us and John the 23rd, in our efforts to achieve peace and a balance in the world, and things.
I just wanted to say,
the U.S. policy.
Thank you for bringing that up, Doctor. I just want to say for our audience, Eisenhower is a big one. So again, take that as you will, folks.
Yeah, and if something happened from concerning Sister Lucy, and some part of it came from the U.S. government, it would have to involve Eisenhower.
How
you get around that. Whether
I couldn't agree more.
Takeover of the institution of the Catholic Church in 1958, or the disappearance of Sister Lucy, if anything came from the government, Eisenhower would be involved, and John Foster Dulles. And it's
right.
John the 23rd is yes, we support your peace initiatives, and even though we don't have military forces, we have many spiritual avenues that we can pursue in order to help bring about the world peace and
right,
stability that you're talking about. So in other words, they were lining up together, and probably because John the 23rd knew who helped get him in power and who suppressed the candidacies of his enemies.
Right. I just wanted to say to wrap this up, Doctor, if you could tell everyone where they can find your work, and if there's anything else you wanted to mention in terms of getting a hold of you or anything like that.
Sure. Okay. I'll just give you our site where we have all our published professional information. Is sisterlucytruth.org, and I have my own blog in which I publish various things. It's called Rad Trad Thomas, THOM.
It was on the screen earlier when we were pulling up those images. It was on the bottom corner back there because they were y'all's images showing up so much. But so they've seen the URL.
Right. It's okay. It's there. Rad Trad Thomas. That's where I publish the new things that we've come up with and found, and just various commentaries that I have on various things. And if you would like to contact me, if you're interested in this matter or you have some avenue that you think we should pursue, my email address is the word justice with the letters PC after it, and all one word, and then at yahoo.com. Contact me if you're interested, and if you have something we can share, and we'd like to hear from you, because we really want to get this information in front of the public. Whatever you can give us to help us, keep going and pay for all this professional investigation, just go to sisterlucytruth.org/donate. And because we're really, have very few funds, and we want to keep going, and we're going to keep going. We got so much on, we can hardly put it up. And it's all, amateur hour, in the sense that we all have full-time jobs, and yet we try to give what we can to this very important subject.
Well, Doctor, thank you so very much. And again, this has been a fantastic conversation. And for everyone watching and listening, we will catch all of you next time around. Thank you so much, folks.